welcome to Alchemy for the 21st Century, the Rebirth of Resistance. My name's Gary, and I'd just like to take a little time to talk with you about current events, not for the purpose of spin, but in order to just make you aware of some topics, beginning with, is America really ready for the budget cuts and the structure coming its way? And with all this talk about jobs, should we be asking when the central banks are going to raise the interest rates enough to make it attractive to invest in the real economy again? Or is there just still too much money to be made playing the number games in Wall Street or the selling of the Dream franchise? This brings us over again to Europe, and the question here is Germany going to continue bailing out the EU? But how can it afford not to when the Eurozone is its best customer, and we now know that Japan's having difficulty finding customers for its exports? So maybe what we're seeing here is the beginning of the problems with the double dipping, or maybe what we could also say too is that history may be repeating itself, this time through economic battlefronts. And we also still have the problems in the Middle East and Africa with many people losing their lives, and this is all very sad. So what we could maybe say is much of the world is still in some type of damage control, and another section is the grips of stagnation. And the only thing that's really growing is human misery, poverty, and the stealing of wealth. And could this be evidence of what I call the failing paradigm, which you can see in some of my previous videos? But I'm here today to talk with you about structure, and that's because mankind has been taught to believe that there are various systems throughout the world, such as communism, capitalism, socialism, Marxism, or whatever you want to call it. But we must remember that all these systems come from the same structure, and that structure consists of a hierarchy, exploitation of resources, the creation and stratification of a labor force, the control of the transmission of knowledge, and the creation of legal and financial and enforcement systems that always support the structure. So what we could also say here too is the structure differentiates itself by how the hierarchy distributes and keeps the wealth, and that's what gives each system its name. But the most interesting part about this is that it appears that this structure has controlled mankind throughout the age for thousands of years, has commanded the age for thousands of years. And the next question here has to be, is this the best mankind can do? And in order to understand the full impact of that statement, we must have an understanding of the origins of the structure. And some people would say the structure begins with civilization, and that's relatively no-brainer. Everything has to begin. But maybe the question has to be, is when did structure begin to rule civilization through ideas of organization and technology? And this we find a clue because we can find ancient documentation of this process. And one can begin to understand this once he becomes aware of the symbolism of the beehive. So it appears that maybe there is a seed, and it is not supernatural, that grows through time, and its only purpose is the continuation of the structure at any cost to humanity. And it appears that maybe at certain times the structure must be reinvented and then sold to the masses as a solution to the human existence. And this we could find a reason for maybe why time is divided between BC and AD. But if this was the total picture, Okay, mankind would gladly accept his fate, but we know this is not necessarily true. So what we could say that maybe there is another force in play here, and it is this force that pushes mankind in a different direction, and what we could call this is the evolution of thought. It is the evolution of thought that produces the fundamental changes within the masses, that produces a new structure through a transformed paradigm. So what we could say that maybe what we're seeing in the world today is the conflict between the old rules of existence and mankind's desire for something better. And we could call this the beginnings of the modern Exodus. But there is sort of something that gets in the way. There is sort of something where the evolution of thought cannot fulfill itself. And the evolution of thought cannot fulfill itself until mankind becomes aware of something new. So this time, it is not about negotiations to a better deal through acts of violence, destruction, division, or hate. Nor is it about love. It is about mankind becoming aware of what he truly is, and that happens through an understanding of the destiny of his birthright, which makes mankind relevant again, and that begins with the understanding of flow of time and consciousness, something it appears that the Mayans were aware of. So I hope you found my interpretation interesting today, and I want to thank you for your time in viewing my videos.